To announce the prize for this year, I'm going to pass over to Rakim Kim, who's an assistant professor of global environmental governance at the Copernicus Institute of Sustainable Development at Utrecht University. He's been actively involved in the System Governance Project in a number of roles, and he is the chair of the Oran Prize Committee and also the inaugural winner of this award from 2013. So over to you, Rakim.
So thank you, Jonathan. So it is now time for the Oran Young Prize. My name is Rakim, and I'm the chair of the prize committee. Before I announce this year's winner, I'd like to say a few words about the prize. So the Oran Young Prize is a prize for early career scholars. It was set up in 2013 to reward and encourage groundbreaking research on Earth system governance. And the prize is also set up to honor the pioneering work of Professor Oran Young, who has had a tremendous impact on our research community. Next slide, please. So this year we have once again received a good number of quality submissions for the prize. These submissions have been evaluated by the prize committee consisting of 7 distinguished scholars and myself, all coming from a wide range of backgrounds. The committee members are, in alphabetical order, Professors Frank Bierman, Lorraine Elliott, Christopher Gordon, Peter Haas, Tatiana Klubankova, Kate O'Neill, and Susan Park. All submissions went through a 2-step partially blind review process, which allowed for a fair and transparent evaluation. Now it is time to announce the winner. The 2021 Oran Young Prize goes to, next slide please, Dr. Jasper Montana from the School of Geography and the Environment at Oxford for his paper titled Responsibilities for Biodiversity in the Anthropocene, Allocation, Enablement, and Relations of Responsibility in the UK Overseas Territories. The prize committee found the paper conceptually innovative, empirically solid, and theoretically relevant to the ESG literature. And now we will hear from Professor Oran Young about what he thought about Dr. Montana's work. Next slide, please.
A privilege and a pleasure to have this opportunity to offer a few comments on the paper that is the winner of the 8th Oran Young Prize. There's much to like about Jasper Montana's paper on responsibilities for biodiversity in the Anthropocene. He does an excellent job of working back and forth between in-depth case study and larger conceptual and theoretical issues of considerable importance. He digs deeply into efforts to conserve biodiversity in the UK overseas territories. He uses this case as a basis for exploring responsibility, what he calls relational understanding of responsibility. He gains leverage by fusing ideas from international relations and human geography. Along the way, he shows how thinking about narratives can help us to understand the complexities of this subject. Let me offer a few observations that came to my mind in reading this stimulating paper. First, regarding the 6-element analytic framework Jasper sets up for understanding relations of responsibility. One thing that struck me when I looked at this framework is perhaps we need to think about responsibility not only for what, but also responsibility to whom. And also in looking at the analytic framework, I wondered about reasons for why actors behave responsibly. But then second, I thought about trends and dynamics. How do the contents and the influence of narratives shift over time, the rise and fall of different kinds of narratives? For example, are we witnessing today a shift toward a narrative which Jasper calls environmental stewardship in the context of the Anthropocene? The third, regarding the determinants, the explanations of shifts in narrative's responsibility. Does the rise of the idea of the Anthropocene shift our way of thinking about relational responsibility? Do we now think, because we have become aware or because we've become influenced by the idea of the Anthropocene, do we now think differently about narratives of responsibility than we did before we had this concept? And then fourth, regarding links between relational responsibility and the Earth system and Earth system governance, which is our special interest in the context of this conference. Do we now need to think of in global terms in addressing responsibility for the conservation of biodiversity? Jasper, of course, talks about relational responsibility in the context of the United Kingdom overseas territories, but we in the Earth system governance community are increasingly aware of global concerns and global issues. And when we think, for example, about the sixth great extinction event, we're thinking about global loss of biodiversity. And so I wonder in this context whether we as a species, human beings, have trouble accepting responsibility for our actions on a global scale or beyond the confines of our own communities or societies. We may be used to thinking about responsibility to our neighbors or responsibilities to our community or even to our country, but now in the Anthropocene, do we need to expand our scope? Do we need now to think about responsibility to the global community to address questions of Earth system governance? Anyway, those were a few thoughts that came to my mind in thinking about this very stimulating paper. Finally, I'd like just to make a comment on the conduct of research in the time of COVID. Jasper's study involves extensive interviews carried out to a large extent during the time of COVID. This obviously required considerable agility on the part of the researcher. And so I see this paper, in addition to being very interesting in terms of its substance, a really inspiring paper in terms of how younger generations of researchers are finding ways to continue to do important research, even under the difficult circumstances of COVID-19. And so my concluding remark is that my hat is off to Jasper Montana for producing an impressive paper under challenging conditions.
Thank you, Professor Young. It's always inspiring to hear from you. So on behalf of the prize committee, I would also like to add my congratulations to Dr. Montana on such an outstanding achievement. I have the plaque with me here, which I will make sure to have it posted to you. So this is the end of the prize ceremony, and I now hand back to Jonathan. Thank you.
Many thanks, Rick, and hats off indeed to Jasper for the prize for this year. Congratulations. And I'd like to add my thanks too to Oran Young for his laudation. He's done so much to inspire generations of researchers in the ESG